Yeah, so initially we didn't really want to download TikTok as like a form of entertainment. We did it because we were thinking about using it for Chris, and then basically it just got us into a whole other hellhole. And TikTok is very big. It was already big even before the MCO, but we have noticed that there's a big surge since the MCO has started. A lot of people are beginning to join, and people are like people who have never posted content online, they are starting to do it via TikTok. So today what we're going to talk about is actually somewhat the dangers of it, because online gender-based violence is very much not new until um, yeah, it's not new. Like, it's happened on Twitter, it's happened on YouTube, it's happened on Instagram. It's very famous to be a thing amongst trolls. So we have it on TikTok now, because TikTok is a recently popular app that has like drawn language of violence, bullying, and things like that, right? So we also need to talk about how our children are also basically affected by TikTok's popularity, because they're a huge portion of the users are underage. As much as we want to think it's just us, it's not. So we will be talking about that. So first and foremost, I want to explain first what TikTok is. Basically, TikTok is a bite-sized video app. For those who don't know how it works, is that basically you post videos of you dancing and singing, and you dancing and singing, maybe just like craft videos, and they're all really short. It can go up from 15 seconds to 60 seconds. Yeah, so 1 minute. So people usually post on there to like show like their talents, their skills, make it comedic and stuff like that. So TikTok is based in China under the company called ByteDance. It was originally known as Douyin in 2016, and then TikTok was released in the international market in 2017. It was downloaded 80 million times globally in 2018, and eventually in 2019 it became 1 billion, which is a lot.
Almost 2 billion.
Sorry?
Like almost 2 billion. Like
Almost 2
1.6.
billion now.
Something like that. Yeah, almost 2
No,
billion.
I would actually believe it, because it was already like I saw recently that they've already started releasing how many videos have you seen on TikTok,
Mm-hmm.
and one girl showed that she watched 20 million videos, like in the span of
Yeah.
like 1 to 2 years that she's had it. So I wouldn't be surprised if it has gone up to 2 billion, to be honest. And also they took over, basically with um, they merged with Musically in 2017. As we understand, Musically was already big, but it wasn't as big in Malaysia. But to make you further understand how big TikTok actually is that they spent $1 billion in order to make the merging thing happen, right? So that already shows the capacity and how much they're earning, and how big they are basically as a company, right? So TikTok is used to create bite-sized videos where users post videos of them dancing, singing, lip syncing, comedy, talent videos. So how it works is that you have two timelines, one that is based on the accounts that you follow, and another one is an algorithm of what TikTok believe you would enjoy. So sometimes on the one timeline, you get to pick who you want to see. It's the people that you follow, right? But on the other timeline, it's the people that TikTok chooses for you to like, or maybe like follow further. So apart from all of that, with all of that said, sorry, language. With all of that said, this has already caused a lot of issues over time, because there is lack of control, with given that they have so many users, so many people up on it, even children, right? And also, it has become such a big deal that it's so much more harder to monitor. In Malaysia recently, they've already opened out a job opportunity for people to moderate the content, but we don't really know so far as to what they have done to help us with the moderating of the content locally. So to get further on this, let's talk about what forms of gender-based violence has been happening on it. So I'm gonna ask Gina about it. So what are the types of online gender-based violence that you have observed on TikTok so far?
Hi. We've been doing some monitoring for Chris on online gender-based violence, and when we started doing it on TikTok, um, there have been forms of gender-based violence on TikTok that are like very scattered and here and there. Like if you see somebody who's performing in a way that's like gender non-binary, like there's a lot of comments of are you a boy, are you a girl, and it's very heteronormative. But I think the trend that has been super worrying, and it has been a trend. I think there was a point during MCO where it was like every 3 or 4 days, it was a different girl you would see that would go viral in Malaysia because she did a dance challenge or a dress up challenge or whatever it was, and she would get sexualized. And sexualization is one thing, it can be super empowering, but the trend that you see in Malaysia is that the sexualization becomes very objectified. And there's a lot of like, oh, why are you moving this way? Or why are you dressed this way? And just very, very violating kind of comments sometimes. So the speaker that we initially had, Aisha, who was supposed to be a panelist, she uploaded a TikTok and she was getting comments that were completely unrelated to the content that she was posting. And they were very like people trying to hit on her and yeah, just stuff like that. And it happens all the time. It's super widespread and it's something that's very concerning because it's one thing for you to post yourself and the sexual expression that you want to portray, and it's another thing for people to think that they are entitled to say whatever to you and that it doesn't hurt, because we have this type of false binary idea where online is online and offline is offline, and like there's no such thing as cyberbullying, just turn off the computer. But that's not necessarily true, because when you're online and you're kind of using that platform as an extension of yourself, to see a lot of people react to it in a certain way that is very, very negative can be very overwhelming, can be something that makes you question like, is my performance or expression of self in the world something that is valid or something that people like? And in a sense, the way that you feel in the real world can be amplified because you can't necessarily walk away. You know, you can turn off the computer, but you can't necessarily like walk away or know how to navigate. Most of the time you post something and you don't know who's listening or who's watching until it's too late, maybe. So
Yeah, on top of that, because TikTok, you don't actually have to register when you download it. You can register to have the option to like them, to save the videos, or either to post your own content. But if you don't want to do that, you just have to download the app. And when you download the app, it's just out there in the open for you. You can scroll through and there's no problem with it. Like TikTok doesn't have the capacity to check whether you're looking at it or not, what content are you looking at. So either ways, there is a breach of privacy, because if anything happens, we can't really go back to that and know whether you've seen the post or not. So that's also another issue that we're facing right now with TikTok, is that there's no transparency, right? They're just allowing anyone to open it and just look through it and download it if they want to. Okay, so
it's super weird, by the way. Like, why do you need a 15-second video of a girl dancing offline? Why?
That's also another issue. Yeah, definitely, 100%.
The other,
yeah.
Sorry if I may just interject. The other things with the with how online gender-based violence happens on TikTok, it's a cross-platform violence, because user can very easily download TikTok videos and it can be shared on Twitters, WhatsApp chat groups, Telegrams. I mean, these are the things that also happens on with Facebook and Twitter as well. But because TikToks are a lot more visible, it has videos of our bodies being recorded, and and how it also, and this is how it also amplifies the harms towards the women, because harassments can happen without the knowledge of the victim as well.
Yeah, because it's so much easier to
Yeah.
download, right? Like they give the option.
Yeah.
Of that.
Yeah.
Definitely, I agree with you. Fear, how long have you been using TikTok so far?
I think I downloaded it in earlier this year, I think. But obviously due to MCO, there's a lot more time to like waste on TikTok. But before this, I was just consuming TikTok videos through different platforms like what you guys were talking about. Because everything, it's everywhere. It's on Twitter, it's on Instagram. So yeah.
And so far, how have you felt like your with your experience? Have you ever seen anything that goes like interlinked with gender-based violence on TikTok?
Definitely. As a personal user, I've never had like a personal experience being harassed or objectified via TikTok. But definitely when we go through the For You section where we get to watch videos, it gets very discomforting when you see really underage children um, posing into very inappropriate settings, and also the language that they use. But then again, like before TikTok, like this has been in existence since time immemorial. Like once we give a platform for children to express themselves, like, and without proper guidance or proper intervention, obviously they use it as advantage that it's a form of entertainment to them. But well, other than children being in like very inappropriate settings, there's also this trend I see where youthful TikTok users, and they have a lot of young followers, and they encourage all of these young followers to like share their age and like tell where they live. So I think it's not just children using TikToks, it's also predators preying on children on TikTok. To me, that's like my number one concern, because if you are an adult and if you decide to do something, you are aware of the things that you do, you know the right and wrong. But when it's children, it's more complicated than just, oh, there's a child posting on TikTok, it's harmless. Yeah.
Definitely. So far with the content, the abusive content that you've been seeing online, right, on TikTok, has it been mostly local or is it mostly international?
All of these things that I'm talking about are all like local TikTok users. There's actually a huge pool of young young Malaysian TikTok users who either post and consume or just consume all of these TikTok users. I mean, they just view them. But there's a lot of engagement that's happening on TikTok profiles. And I think, I don't know if it's like, because, okay, for instance, when a TikTok user, like an adult TikTok user, like a man, um, wants to know the age of his followers, of course his followers would feel special. They feel like this person that they admire wants to know more about them, and they, you know, carelessly share sensitive information about themselves without knowing, what's private and what's not. And when we talk about all of these social media threats, it has desensitized our children to know what's private and what's not private. And then later on, we groom a generation that's, all like, semua benda boleh share. Walhal, it's a dangerous thing to do.
True.
Yeah.
Very, very true. So like, why do you think like this harm is exclusive or more exacerbated like on TikTok? Like why, like what is so special about TikTok that's different about I don't want to say special, I want to use a different word for that. What is so different that TikTok harm has caused compared to like all the other platforms like Twitter, YouTube and all that?
Okay, number one, the very fact that it's trending now. So when it's trending, it shows the number of users. So a lot more people are on it, a lot more content is made available on this platform. So when there's more things shared, when there are more things shared, obviously there are more risks to harms and also dangers for the TikTok users. But what makes it special, and I strongly agree with Serene, obviously because the very fact that it's in the form of a video. When there's video, you get the personal experience viewing it is more enhanced. It's not just a picture, you get to hear the voice of the person, you get to see the house, the room, the personal environment of the TikTok user. So everything is more amplified when it's on TikTok. And TikTok is the only platform that solely relies on video. You know, it doesn't show pictures or words. So you can literally like a stranger from like for instance, if I'm from Sayang, a person from Kelantan would know how my room looks like, you know, those kind of stuff. And they would know how big my room is, you know, what time I normally wake up and stuff like that. So everything, the personal experience is more prominent via TikTok videos. I think that's what makes it more special. And obviously when it's videos, it's more interesting. I mean, as compared to a picture and a video, mesti you nak tengok video, right? Yeah, and it's made so easy. The interface of the app itself makes it easy for consumers to just go through videos like whatever they want. And one interesting thing that I found out about TikTok is that it has like a special algorithm that connects you to content that you are more likely to like consume. So it's not just people uploading it, but it's the TikTok corporation itself. They know how to capitalize and profitize from its users. Yeah.
To
So
add on
if
to,
I can just, oh,
Yeah,
so I just want to add because Phil raised a good points on the erosions of public and private space, right? If you look at productions of media content, right, traditionally it has been done by professional people. It's usually done in public setting, right? Like you produce content, like when you do news reports, you have a proper studios and things like that. But right now, what we are seeing is that social media has sort of liberated everyone. Everybody can now produce. Everybody is a producer and also a consumer when it comes to information online. And then we see how things change with blogs, Facebook, Twitters. Everybody are able to express themselves better and post it up. YouTube, people are making videos of their own interests, hobbies, and they share various knowledge on YouTube. But I think with TikToks, right, it's a further erosion of our personal and private life. And we have to also acknowledge that the fact that this part of our private life are being commodified by social media companies, and they're making monies. They are making monies of me posting of videos of me dancing in my own private room. And these are like for my own pleasure, something that is done in my own private space. But this is money generating for them. And yet there's very little safeguard as to our privacy. The fact that TikTok videos can be so easily downloaded by people, and the fact that I get nothing in returns except maybe gaining followers. But the social media companies are making a lot more monies by encroaching into my private space and my privacy. And yet they are not accountable because these are companies. I mean, for TikTok, they are based in China. And it's not something that we can go to them and say, hey, it's my constitutional right, right to life, right to privacy. There's no such thing. And as it is right now, there's a huge resistance by social media companies to actually uphold our human rights. And they are still struggling when it comes to online gender-based violence. I mean, even Facebook, right? They don't know what to do with the amounts of hate and cyberbullying that's happening. So I think understanding the business structures and calling them out, it's important. Yeah.
just to add,
Sorry.
No,
no,
do you have anything to add?
fine. Yeah, about the platform, about the exclusivity of the platform. Maybe this will put it more into perspective. Like TikTok's special thing is that you can attach audio to video, right? So it's not just songs, it's also lines from movies and TV shows and whatever, and you can make a meme of that. Or even if you're an original creator and you make an original video, people can take the audio from that video and make spoofs of that. So traditionally, when you look at other types of platforms that have done something similar to this, copyright has always been a huge issue. Like anyone who's tried to use a Beyonce song for anything knows how quickly they will come for you and make you take your content down. But because TikTok is so big, these copyright holders, right, if you're a musician or whatever type of artist, because it can go viral and give your art or your meme or whatever like such a huge amount of exposure, TikTok is one of like the newest ways for them to find it worth it, you know, to give you access to their material that has been under copyright for so long. And then on top of that, there's also this like challenge mindset that happens in TikTok that maybe you don't really see on Instagram. Like you kind of see it on Instagram. Like when Drake did the In My Feelings challenge with the dance and everything, like there were 5 million of those on TikTok and only like 1.5 million on Instagram. And then you compare the two platforms and you see that like Instagram does have video and it is very visual, but it's also a very curated visual. It's like the best skin, the best hair, the best house, and everything. And on TikTok, TikTok relies more a bit on authenticity. And you enjoy jokes more if it's somebody who's just like you, as opposed to like some out of touch celebrity that like is doing TikTok because it's the new fun thing. That's not
Yeah.
as fun maybe as watching somebody your age somewhere else doing something stupid, you know? So
All right. So that's a very, very good point from all three of my guests. Okay, so basically, we have to also cover the privacy concerns that goes with TikTok, right? So the thing is, TikTok, like Serene said, they take up all the information that we have, then they have the right to sell it. That's because not everybody reads the terms and conditions, right? And even so, when you do read it, sometimes you're like your mind's just like tertarik with the content more than rather than the legal repercussions of it. One of the things that Sapphire Dragon has pointed out is that many in the commercial world would argue that the platform is free. So if you don't want the risk, don't use it. They would argue nothing is free in this world. Let's talk about that after we get answers for this question. Who benefits from this? Like in terms of business model, who benefits from everything that's going on TikTok with the popularity growth, with the marketing schemes and stuff like that? Who wants to start with Serene?
It's not free. We are not using the platform for free. We are paying it with our data. We are giving one, by signing the consent form, we are giving away our copyright ownerships to the content. And they're also mining our data. And these are not monetary values in the traditional sense. We have to understand also data is money right now. And that's a famous saying that when the platform is free, you are the price. You actually paid the price. And I think we need to shift public mindset as well, that nothing is ever free, because then you are the product.
If I can add.
Yeah.
So data might not be very valuable to you or me. Like I really don't care what you do on your data, but to someone like an advertiser or a business partner of TikTok, that's very, very valuable information. Like over time, a lot of money and effort has been invested into just collecting user data. But now they can link up with someone like TikTok and very quickly, and I have a list here of like all the things that TikTok can take from you or already does take from you is your contact info, all the content that you upload, your location if you have that setting on, your credit card details if you give it to them, the private messages that you send in between like with other users, your contact list, info from third-party social media apps that you use like Twitter, Instagram, whatever. And like Fear mentioned with the algorithmical and behavioral information about how you use the app. So like Nisa makes a lot of Indonesian jokes sometimes, and I missed her a lot during MCO. So one night I was on TikTok like 2 or 3 hours. I was on
I'm part
Indonesian.
Indonesian, okay? Just in case anyone's coming for me, I'm part Indonesian. I'm allowed to do it, okay?
Oh no, she's part Indonesian. She can do it. But I missed her a lot, so I was on like Indonesian TikTok for 3 hours one night, and now every time I go on TikTok they will give me something from Indonesian TikTok, like just things like that, you know, and they collect that and they mine that data. And if they're working with an advertiser that's paying big bucks to them, like we are the currency. So
Definitely.
that's the point.
100%. So would you say that from all of that that's happening, right, how does, like, what is TikTok's priority when it comes to these things? Because based on the legal repercussions that they have faced, where there have been a lot of countries, by the way. There have been India, as much as what I know so far. It's India, Indonesia. Even the Dutch government is going to file a case against TikTok because they basically what India and Indonesia did was they banned TikTok briefly under the pretense that they were very, very scared for their children because of the content that's very pornography like, and also how TikTok seems to have a problem with how they're going to moderate it, right? So, with this said, when these countries they announce the bans, TikTok is very quick to jump up and say, "I'll do something about it," right? So they'll make the regulations and the policies all localized according to the country's preference. So, for example, is that I think after there were a lot of concerns about children's age and how the app was basically free for all to register, they set a time where when you register as a person, and if you were born after 2005, you're not allowed in because you're under 13 years old. Has it been that long? Anyways, yeah, so it's you're under 13 years old, right? So they will tell you, oops, sorry, but you're not allowed to be registered. But the thing about it is it can be cheated. I can lie that I'm not 13. I can lie and say I'm not 11, right? So with all of this said, I would like to point the question to Fear. Almost all of the legal issues that TikTok had faced since its launch has been in relation to countries being concerned with the safety of their children. Malaysia has not done this yet. There has not been any vocalized issue on this thing. Do you see this happening in the future?
Okay, I think there's two sides of the coin lah. Let's be fair. I think Malaysia, what we can credit is that we have a lot of agencies and basically legal structures to accommodate to online security issues. But sadly, despite the increase in the use of TikTok in Malaysia, we are not fast enough to pinpoint, okay, this is an issue, how do we like address this. But like things like like our cybersecurity agency and also our Ministry of Communications and Multimedia, we annually organize a national scale initiatives or events in regards to online safety. So the awareness and understanding of online safety is in existence in Malaysia. Bukan nak kata Malaysia langsung has no understanding of what privacy is, of what cybersecurity is. We do have it. In fact, recently in 2020, we just had our annual Safer Internet Day, and the theme was on digital fluency, or in BM Fasih Digital. The principles or the spirit behind digital fluency is super, super important. It's essential in every internet user out there to embody, so that we become users who are smart, and when we stumble upon any threats online, we are able to take responsible decisions. So that's the whole principle behind digital fluency, and Malaysia is advocating for it. So I wouldn't say Malaysia is totally out of touch with the advancement in the use of technology and online. However, when it comes to criticizing our government and our country, one thing that I think we lack is basically proactivity or proactiveness in enforcement. If we look into the laws, we have laws in place. We have the Child Act, which is super progressive. We have our Sexual Offences Against Children Act, which was enacted in 2017, and it covers extensively when we talk about child pornography, when we talk about online grooming. So laws are there and they are super progressive. And when we talk about structures in our executive limb, even our police, there's actually a specialized investigative task force that is called MICAC to address online threats involving children. So all of these structures are already put into place, and we also have regulatory bodies like MCMC to oversee these kind of cases. However, when we talk about commitment and we talk about actually implementing all of these laws, that's where we are lacking. And it has been proven in a recent report that was issued by ACPAT International. It says that Malaysia punya law, we scored more than 50 over 100. But when it comes to government's capacity and also commitment, we only scored 39 over 100. So this shows, despite having the most progressive laws, despite having all of these canggih names in PDRM, in MCMC, semua gempak lah dekat paper. But when it comes to cases, we don't know how to deal with them. And if I may share my personal experience, there were a few times where Mao took the opportunity to report on child abuse material on Twitter. We went to a local police station and the police investigator was not able to understand the language that was on Twitter. And we're talking about a police station that was in an urban area. Kita belum lagi sentuh area yang pedalaman, yang tak pernah tahu TikTok ni apa, yang tak tahu privacy features ni apa. So it's everything looks good on paper, but when it comes to actually implementing the law, that's where we lack. And like you said, Nisa, like other countries are very, very fast at addressing all of these online violations that TikTok is doing to us. But if you look in Malaysia, belum ada satu parliamentarian lagi yang bring up TikTok as a national security issue in parliament. Walhal it should be a national security issue because it involves children, it involves gender-based violence. But if this thing is not seen as something that is essential to be brought into the parliament, if it's not an issue that needs to be addressed ASAP, then sampai ke sudah lah. We are using it dangerously.
Yeah,
that's my opinion.
I agree. Like if we're not talk about TikTok in general, right? When it comes to parliament on normal days, I would see the logic behind it, but then like you said, during the MCO, everything has like risen up, especially these apps, right? So and the kids, they don't have anywhere to go, so they're just spending time on it. So it makes it more like more risky. Yeah. What would you like to add, Gina?
Not sorry. The global push for TikToks, right? One is of course is actual concern on the privacy aspect, and also the amount of bullying that has been happening. But the other things is also it's driven by geopolitics because it's the US versus China. For once, it's I think TikTok is the first social media that is based in China that has grown so big, and that's why they are concerned, and hence there's so many pushback against China. Plus, China has never been opened around their data protections policy. And even though I've read some articles, TikTok has maintained their independence, but there are two leaked documents. I think one has said that TikTok actually censor content around Tiananmen and about the Tibetan independence. So these are, yeah. So I think globally it's also driven by that, the politics between US and China. But I do agree with Fear that we actually have the things in place, and the perceived dangers and harms that are created by TikTok is not new. I mean, videos, child pornographies are circulated on Telegrams, and why aren't governments doing anything to push back? And why are we not doing more public education as well? Like for example, as simple as sex educations for children that needs to be in place, but that hasn't really been done as well. So yeah, it's a lot about enforcement and implementation, not so much about the dangers of the platforms and things like that.
Yeah, also to add to that is that China, so like I said, TikTok is originally Douyin, but when they made it into TikTok, TikTok is TikTok in the global view, but if it's in China, it's still Douyin, and their data collecting stuff is completely different from the whole entire world. So China is, when we're talking about the 1 billion downloads and the 800 million downloads, that is actually excluding China. So we don't really know exactly in total how many downloads has it been. For all we know, it could be maybe double of what we already said. Do you have anything to add, Gina?
The question was, who does this benefit, right? Like originally.
Yeah.
And I think it's no, don't apologize. I think it's useful to maybe look at Tumblr as a parallel of if the company has an interest to do the public good thing, because that's the problem, right? Like, we have companies have this free market sort of like capitalist driven interest to exploit what is trendy, even if it harms people, because they have like a monetary interest to do so. And when you look at a place like Tumblr, when it was initially bought by Yahoo or Verizon, was valued at like 1.1 billion. So it was a very, very valuable company. And it was one of the only microblogging sites where you could post so much like not safe for work content. And because of that, there was a lot of like democratization of content in the sense that every community has a space there, which is similar to what's happening on TikTok. Like, TikTok has made content more accessible to everybody, and every type of subgroup, subculture has a space there. But similarly to the dangers that we're seeing and the concerning trends that we're seeing on TikTok, in around like 2017, there was a lot of child porn being discovered on Tumblr. And because the outrage got so big and the pushback got so big, they finally rolled out an anti-not safe for work content sort of like ban, where they were like, no more, if you post a pornographic image on Tumblr, it gets taken down very, very quickly. And then after they did that, what we saw was that the company was sold again to WordPress at 3 million. And compare that to the 1.1 billion that Yahoo bought the company for in the beginning, right? Like, the devaluation was so much. So because like the biggest push for people to keep using that platform was kind of gone, you know, like you saw everyone kind of port out and go to Twitter to like engage in that type of content. So it does benefit TikTok because they don't necessarily care what happens to the people behind the screen. If it's very clickable content and it gets more people to like log on, then I don't see them changing. So then the question of like, whose responsibility is it to push for this, and how do we become responsible users of TikTok when maybe the company doesn't have an interest in putting their foot down about what's morally right, and
So,
our governments and institutions don't really know what to do.
if we were to say, right, like, let's say TikTok has sold their company to somebody else, let's say the way that Tumblr did, and they did exactly what Tumblr did, no more not safe for work content. And so, do you think that it will definitely affect the market value of TikTok?
I don't know. I don't know if it'll affect it in the same way, because Tumblr, I think, was more of a community where all of the different subcultures were very much separate. You know, like, you couldn't be a furry and also into Dan and Phil, or maybe you could, I don't know. But like on TikTok, because of the algorithm and the For You page, things are way more discoverable. Like, compare TikTok to something like Instagram stories, right? Most people go onto Instagram and spend more time looking at the stories, but those are not discoverable. You don't get stories boosted onto somebody else's profile unless you're looking for it. So if TikTok were to roll it out, sorry, what was the question?
Um, if it follows the footsteps of Tumblr, do you think that
Yeah.
it would definitely devalue the market?
No,
value?
I don't think so. I don't think so, because I think TikTok is a bit of a monopoly now. Whereas Tumblr maybe wasn't really a monopoly. You can kind of do what you do on Tumblr on Twitter, for example. And literally on Twitter, the image quality is higher. But looking at TikTok, it is kind of a monopoly. Like, they bought their competitor Musical.ly, and they ported all of the users from Musical.ly, like, automatically were ported into the TikTok platform. And yeah, it's so viral, and it has such a unique sort of environment as well on TikTok. So I think Nisa actually brought up this point when we were talking about it yesterday, that in Indonesia, it was kind of a bit of like a lawless land in TikTok until the government kind of put their foot down and said, like, look, we don't like that this is happening. And that was the push for TikTok to revise their policy.
So in a way, it kind of reflects how important marketing to them was.
Yes.
Yeah.
There was also...
Oh, sorry, no. I just want to add to the point why like TikTok is thriving because of the vertical video formats, because it's also a reflection of how people are using devices these days. A lot of people are accessing internet via phones rather than laptop. So that's also a reflection of how society evolved with technology. So yeah, I just want to add to that. Gina?
I forgot what I want to say. I'm sorry.
It's okay, we'll get back to you.
I'll bring it up again when I remember.
All right. So, speaking of discoverable content, right? So there's always this presumption that social media and the internet will have bad influence on children. So kids only mode was added by TikTok. This was followed by a complaint by, I think, either India or the US on the contents of the child pornography stuff on TikTok. And other telco in Malaysia has allowed parents to set parental control over children's access to internet. Other websites such as YouTube and Netflix did the same a few years back. And as an advocate, I'm pointing this question to Fear. How can this reconcile with children and teenagers' freedom of expression? And how do we balance it with the real threats of online sexual grooming and adult content exposure?
I think first things first, children have rights to freedom of expression. It all falls under, their rights to development and their rights to participation. So like before internet even existed, their right to participation would probably be, joining Pandu Putri in school. But these days, it has evolved into, the rights to utilize online as a tool for them to discover the world, etc., etc. So definitely we cannot deny that, TikTok as a social media platform definitely does encourage a child's development, probably on the child's creativity, and it addresses a child's curiosity, it celebrates art and also all of those good stuff, And so yeah, it definitely does benefit a child in that sense. And it definitely preserves a child's freedom to do whatever she wants, to explore herself, explore other people and stuff like that. But the question that we need to ask is whether TikTok is a worthy option for a child as a means to freedom of expression. And when we look into, if we ask ourselves that question, we gotta find other options lah. So other than TikTok, apa lagi benda yang can also provide a child's right to freedom of expression? Contohnya, like for instance, joining, a music class or joining a theater. So do we get to achieve the same end result? Does a child still get to develop socially? Does this child also develop creatively? And as an adult who will be responsible for a child in the future, kita kena look into the risks and threats lah. So if option B has less risk as compared to TikTok, we might want to consider going for option B lah selain TikTok. Because at the end of the day, no matter how much we want to liberalize our children and allow them to explore the world without any restrictions, but the issue of security, the issue of safety still has to be put as the number one emphasis, because rights to protection is still a right. And in order to preserve a child's protection is through all of this evaluating and all of this assessing lah. So like you said, we have to balance between a child's right to express herself or himself, but at the same time, are we compromising this child's safety? So that's one thing that we need to look into, because we cannot deny the fact that TikTok definitely profitizes on underage children, and they use children as a marketing stimulus in their business. And it puts children at risk to, sexual predation, which is super prevalent everywhere, and it's not just TikTok. So as an adult, intervention must be there. If I had a child, I wouldn't say, you don't use TikTok at all, but there must be guidelines and intervention where we need to teach our children to be internet smart. Yeah.
Just to add on to that, I think I totally agree with Fear. And something that makes it really difficult for adults to sort of monitor and help their kids navigate what's going on online is not only that a lot of adults, especially in Malaysia, are tech illiterate, but like they're also meme illiterate. There's like a whole other language that, like our generation speaks in one meme language and the kids younger than us speak in like an even more unfathomable meme language. So there's like such a disconnect there. And also a lot of these, like, it's not uncommon that there are unrealistic standards that kids always want to emulate. Like, you kind of think back to when we were kind of a bit younger, and maybe the it girl of the moment was someone like Hilary Duff or like Mary Kate and Ashley, and like White Lot to reflect the times. But also they look like kids. You know what I mean? Like, they look like kids. They were not like, wasn't so much pressure for somebody who's 12 years old to like do a full beat of like face makeup and then wear a crop top and then do like the say so dance. But that's what the new norm is for kids, and that's what they're seeing, because they're not necessarily getting all of that that beauty standard from mainstream media. They're getting it from like places like TikTok and Instagram, where content is more democratized. But that also means that you're looking up to people that necessarily like our generation didn't have to deal with it in the same way. So there needs to be a lot more like emphasis on parents learning how to navigate this. I feel like I'm not that old. My brother is like 14 and I have to learn all of his like meme languages and stuff, which is like foreign even to me, and I'm not even that old. I'm like 23.
Yeah, I agree. That really fits with the next question that we're going to ask, Fear. There has been a lot of concerns that TikTok is contributing to early sexualization or hypersexualization of children. Do you agree? And if so, like, what would be the psych behind it?
Okay. I don't have psychology background, but I'll just answer this, through the ways that I can as a person. I would have to agree. It definitely does encourage hypersexualization of children. And it's not just upon the children, it's for the children themselves. So Gina brought up an important point where children are pressured into trying to fit into the detrimental beauty standards, unrealistic and borderline detrimental lah to one's mental health. So benda tu pun wujud. So on the children themselves, they feel that they need to wear a certain way to be accepted online. But there's also part of the consumers where we want to see children in those kind of settings or in those kind of appearances. And it's not just appearances, it's also the language that they use, the gestures that they show on these TikTok videos. So it's really beyond, aesthetics. It's the embodiment of this whole, I need to look a certain way to fit into the TikTok world. So definitely it does encourage, and to a certain extent it accelerates people's perception on children. They no longer see a 13-year-old as a 13-year-old. They now look like adults, and just because they look like adults, they feel that they can treat children as adults. So that's where the harm is. So this thing in a way does encourage pedophilic behaviors from TikTok consumers. We basically enable pedophiles to feed on all of this content involving children. But when we talk about pedophiles, they normally are attracted, by definition, they are attracted to children, like how they are as children, underdeveloped. They don't have all of this, puberty-like features yet. But when we talk about hypersexualization, we want to see children who look like adults. So I think that's a slight, distinction that we need to also pay attention to. So we do have a pool of pedophiles on social media who like to see children like in their natural and authentic state. But there's also, probably our next door neighbor who likes a person, tapi this child is actually baru 12 tahun. Those kind of stuff.
Which is also very difficult, right? Because like we've already established that children's expression is very important, and I also think it's super important for somebody who's kind of growing up to take a selfie and like the way they look, because I cannot remember being that age and then looking at myself and being like, damn, I look really good. Like that happened later in life. So I think it's important for like girls to feel good about themselves if they want to. They want to like do a dress up challenge and feel good. That's great. But like the problem is where we don't, even as adult users, we're not that well versed with what happens when we surrender this information or this content to this company, and how do they use it, and how can it be spread, and how can it be re-downloaded and like multiplied and amplified to the wrong people. And that lack of awareness is what's super dangerous about it, right? Because you don't know who's watching and who's doing all this stuff with your content and your face.
I, I I think when we talk about TikToks, right, a lot of the concern from parents or teachers or adults is always that TikTok is harmful for the young people because a lot of them are on TikTok. One, second, there's a lot of sexually explicit photos, videos, contents that are bad for children. So there's this like perceived dangers and harm to children, and this sort of reminds me of, you know, like when I was in standard 4, and when internet was just first started, and then there's all these writings about like the danger of being addicted to internet, the dangers of like, you know, wanderings and like discovering contents, porns. It's the same things that I see. I think there's some parallel with TikTok right now. When it comes to protections for children, right, the approach that is taken by governments or parents are always, it's always about controlling, you know, like, okay, stop using TikTok, instead of trying to understand what's on TikTok that teenagers actually find relatable. I mean, there's no doubt that there's predators are on TikToks, and these are the things we need to address. But we also cannot deny the good that actually came out of TikTok. There's a reason why young people like that platforms, because they find it relatable to their life, and it makes sense, especially during MCO. There's a reason why it thrived during MCO, because people find stories that they can relate to. They can see, oh, actually, I feel this too, and then like, I'm thankful that you make it so funny. So that part, I think we have to acknowledge that, and it's not so much about, I don't think the approach is just to ban children or young people from not using it, but to actually understand what's the issues. And I think when it comes to sexually explicit photos, right, we need to unpack that further. What do you mean by sexually explicit? Is this just a teenager dressing in her baju kurung, and that you think it's bad because the baju is a bit tight, it shows her boobs, that's why you think it's bad? I think if it's those, right, then the issues is not with TikTok, it's with men. It's the cultures, is patriarchy, it's this misogyny in our society that needs to be addressed. And then the solutions is not on banning TikToks, but perhaps deplatform these men or educating them.
Deplatform.
Yeah.
To add to that, how do we, when these things happen, right, and we are very still, like, there's such a fine line between preventing a child with expressing their thoughts and themselves, and also, you know, making it a platform for sexual predators and stuff like that. So when we talk about being transparent and the efforts that Malaysia has put in terms of for the safety of our children, do you believe that like, how effective has this been, where with all this campaign going on with Klik dengan Bijak, you know, anything that's similar to that, like, how has it worked better with kids? With all the times that you've worked with them personally, do you think that it has really impacted the way they look at the internet, the way they use internet?
Sadly, you know, despite all of this national awareness campaigns, I don't think it's that effective. And probably it's fair for me to say this without, you know, being backed up by data, but through the experience that Mao has had with children, children definitely have access to phones and internet these days, and there's definitely very limited awareness on how they should navigate themselves online. I think, you know, even though the parents may not know of the parental control features and etc., if a child is able to know what are the good and the harms online, and they get to distinct these two, then they'll be, you know, it's gonna be smooth sailing for them, because they would know what they should prevent on social media and what they should invest time on in. So like, the first step of actually addressing this is to actually put this issue of online safety for our children within the syllabus of sexual education or sex education, because this relates heavily with, you know, gender-based violence, with abuse and personal safety. So everything is under the huge umbrella of sexual education. And if our teachers are also macam out of touch with how things are going on social media, then susah lah they nak teach all of these things to the children. So like when now we go to schools, we not only teach that they have to be safe like face to face, but we actually go through, you know, all of these safety features that's available for them to protect themselves. So I think the thing that we need to teach our children is that it's not that you cannot use Instagram or TikTok, for instance. We say you're allowed to, but be aware, because you will stumble upon A, B, C, D. Contohnya, you might encounter, you know, a groomer online, or you might encounter a cyber bully online. So kita kena prepare themselves that these are the things that they will encounter in the future. From there, how do they manage the issue? So that needs to be, and this requires personal touch lah with the child. You know, even if you give a ceramah in school, I don't think that's sufficient, because the child may not be able to like visualize what actually we're talking about. But so like parents need to be a bigger role, like adults like us who have younger kids in our lives have this roles lah.
That's very true, because even when I was a child, during ceramah, I just sleep at the back.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't listen to it, you know, like I don't care about it. Most of these things I just find out by myself. Like it was like opening up a hellhole of things where I was just like, what is this? Why is this happening and stuff like that, right? So what I wanted to say, I had it in my head. Basically with all of this happening, I forgot what I wanted to say. Okay, never mind. I'll go. It's already 4 o'clock actually, so we're just gonna extend maybe 10 to 15 minutes if everyone is okay, because we still have a few questions to ask, and then we will get to the solution, and then we will part ways. A question that I have to Regina is because like after we're already talking about all of this, right? Everything that's happening to children. Let's talk about the online GVB that's happening on TikTok, right? Apart from all the hate that was happening to Aisha, who was supposed to be here, like what forms of OBGV on TikTok that have you seen so far? Like what should people know about it?
I think it's kind of really amplified, especially in Malaysia. We have a very strong rape culture, like one of the best in the world, you know, like and yeah, like it was always there, you know, there was always going to be this moral policing argument of like, oh, like if you've seen that viral video of that unknown kiddo guy with the nostrils and the teeth, and he's just like, oh, how dare you complain about all of these guys who are like commenting on your body and like the way it moves and the way it looks and like whatever, like in scary specificity. How dare you be upset about that if you're like so exposed on the TikTok app? It's like men don't understand that they can give a compliment without making you feel violated. Like, oh, hi, yeah, you look good today or whatever. Like you can be polite about it, but it's really amplified this sort of sense of entitlement that a lot of guys have. But like maybe it's good in a sense because now we can see it, whereas before it was like you have to wait for the monster to reveal itself. Now it's just like, oh, here I am, and then now we can deal with it. But yeah, I'm kind of proud in the sense where when these things become viral, there's also such a strong like resistance against it. But also it's worrying, but it's also good that it's so viral that people can resist against it. Yeah, so that's my answer, is people sexualizing and feeling entitled.
How about when we're talking about gender-based violence, right? What are the repercussions? Because obviously, when you are part of the LGBT community, you get repercussions either ways. But what sort of repercussions are they facing on TikTok? Like, is it any?
Oh my goodness! There's also the TikTok where they did the Don't Rush challenge, and it was all drag queens.
Mhm.
And yeah, that was terrifying because after that, there was like some hate posts that came up. There was one on Instagram that had, I think, like 17,000 likes, where they're like, oh, look, this is normal now in Malaysia. Like, get the LGBT out of here. Like, and all the comments were so violent, like insinuating killing these people and seriously harming them. That's also something that exists. And it's also tricky because for a lot of people, like LGBT people as well, like this is a community that struggles with visibility. So in a way, it's kind of like a triumph for them to be able to be so visible and have it received very well, but it also amplifies the sort of violence that they might get in real life online. um, there was a great community effort to report these posts, and a lot of them were taken down. um, so visibility is a win, but I don't think visibility is a win in and of itself if it also allows all of this structural hate to continue to fester.
To add
But yeah.
context to what Gina just said about the mass reporting thing, it was
Mhm.
it was based on the Instagram and Twitter posts of the TikTok video, right? So,
Mhm.
I mean, directly, it's not TikTok that took it down. Like, it's the other platforms that have done better jobs at moderating, obviously, because TikTok. I mean, based on my personal experience and also the people that are on the panel right now, is that the reports are not taken seriously on TikTok. And to note, um, for all of the people who are hearing right now, is very sad to say that one of the issues with TikTok is also cyberbullying, right? The problem with cyberbullying is that when it is enabled by the app itself. So in December 2019, a report by German digital rights group, which is called Netzpolitik, they exposed Twitter's regulations, which one of the excerpts actually says subject who is susceptible to bullying or harassment based on their physical or mental condition. Example, facial disfigurement, autism, Down syndrome, disabled people, or people with some facial problems such as birthmarks, slight squint, and etc. It also doesn't help that TikTok actually admitted that it suppresses the videos by disabled users as well as LGBTQ users in a purported effort to limit cyberbullying. But they don't understand that when they're doing this, they're also suppressing these people from the freedom of expression, right? You're not making any difference. Yeah, you're not letting these people express themselves. Instead, you're shunning them away. You're hiding them, but in the name of preventing cyberbullying. So on top of all that, when victim blaming, yes, this is practically victim blaming. And when but of course, TikTok is not 100% in control when it comes to algorithm, because disabled people and LGBT people, as we can see, still do get tractions on TikTok. They become famous and stuff like that from TikTok, right? But when it comes to the hate that they get, what's TikTok doing about it? Considering that even their own regulations say that we don't respect you, right? We don't respect you, and even when the cyberbullying happens, they're not taking down the post. They're not blocking the hate. To them it's nothing. They don't think it violates their regulations, because their regulations itself say that we don't care about you. You deserve to get cyberbullied for being like autistic. So that's a whole other thing about like how TikTok is shady lah. Shady is like the easiest way for me to say it. They're just shady, and they don't think about these things. Instead, they want to care more about the market. They care more that you are skinny, that you're beautiful, and like I wouldn't say, I mean, everyone's beautiful. Let me rephrase that. You're like, the society standard of beauty, right? They want you to look like Bella Hadid. Not all of us can afford Dr. Raj, but
Bella Hadid doesn't look like Bella Hadid.
Bella Hadid
But
doesn't look
anyway,
like Bella
that's
Hadid.
besides the point.
Yeah.
For all of the reasons that TikTok is fun because it's superficial and it's short and it's very like surface level, that means all of the hate that you get is also going to be based on things that are very superficial, like your appearance and the way you talk and the way you move and all that stuff. And there's really not a lot of room for nuance with TikTok. But yeah, TikTok themselves doesn't really have that much of a vested interest to do the morally right thing. or the inclusive thing or whatever. And this is something that I think like the most dramatic example of when TikTok has done this was, I think, about 6 months ago in Brazil, TikTok Brazil, there was a guy who was cyberbullied a lot for his appearance on the TikTok platform. And he told all of his fans, he was like, I'm going to do a very special live stream. And then what he did was he turned on the live stream on TikTok and then he killed himself. And that live stream went on, for like, I think an hour and a half before, like, the reports were coming in and TikTok knew about it. And in all of the internal documents that TikTok has, like, you can literally see the conversations between staff members in TikTok where they're like, okay, so this happened, what do we do? And then like unanimously they're like, call PR before call the police. So yeah, their vested interest is to remain marketable, to remain like, you know, a business. They're a business and they don't have to do the morally right thing. They're not like a government institution. So that's difficult.
Definitely. With all of that to note, let's not talk about the problems anymore, right? And the problems with TikTok. Let's talk about solutions. So one of the things that Sapphire Dragon also brought up is that rather than try to push these platforms to have more mechanisms in place, isn't it best to advocate for transparency for what it costs its users to be on TikTok? So what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, for sure. There's already a problem with lack of transparency, and it can only be good if people are more aware. But then the question is, how do you make all of that information fun and sexy for people to digest? And especially people who are like super young, that are all of the young people and the children and stuff on this app.
One of the things that she pointed out also is how commercial laws are a lot more strict regarding transparency of pricing, which is something I never actually thought about until she pointed it out. Like, commercial laws are in place, but it really does emphasize on the transparency of pricing, but instead of like the legality, the morality of it all, right? So what would you like as...
That's so interesting.
Yeah. I like what she said.
reading
It's in the chat, yeah.
But I think it's one of the solutions. I don't think it's I think this is something that like I remember a platform was trying to push for a more equitable data mining kind of policy. So like if you use the website, it would actually inform you like these are the data that we are mining right now. And then if you agree to it, then we can sort of use your data and sell it to advertiser. So for every profits that we make, you actually get a percentage. And it's but then the money you get is actually in what do you call it? Bitcoins. It's in digital currency things. It was like a product that they were testing. I'm not sure what's happening with it, but I think people are trying to imagine what it means to be more transparent and to be more accountable when it comes to designing a digital platform.
What is this thing called again?
I can't remember what's the name. I need to find. It was like
it works like
2
Google
years
Chrome,
ago.
is it?
No, definitely not Chrome. Definitely not Google Chrome. It was something else.
Another search.
Yeah, but people are trying to imagine what it means to be more transparent when it comes to, you know, this use of data. I mean, to some extent, data mining is not always bad. Like, I do enjoy platforms pushing content that are of my preference to me, because that is useful, right? But what I mind is that data are being taken without my full knowledge, like Facebook. You know, sometimes they also mine our data beyond Facebook when you use other website. As long as, you know, as you have a Facebook account, they would also track your usage on, say, like Shoppings, Lazada, or Zaloras, right? So we need to know, we need them to be transparent, and we need to have autonomies as to, you know, like whether it's okay. Like, websites actually don't ask us. Even when they do, right? You can't negotiate. It's like, okay, if you don't agree, then don't use our platform. It's a take it or leave it kind of mindset.
I have a friend who did a study on the way Tinder mines your information, and one of the interesting things that she told me throughout doing her study was that Tinder actually mines the amount of swipes towards a certain race, and then mines that data and then pushes more people of that race towards you, especially in multiracial countries. So
That
these are
explains
all
a lot with my dating life.
you.
Is that all right? My boyfriend's on here, so I shouldn't say much.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna say it, but it's okay. Yeah, so I think like people with all of these platforms that are becoming popular, I think people in some sense kind of know that they're taking your data. They don't necessarily know what that means for you or for like society in general. And because it seems like very finicky sort of information, a lot of people are just like, oh, whatever, this is like the necessary thing to live in a digitized society, to give up all of, you know, my information. And yeah, I think we need to be able to have more discussions that are nuanced about it.
Yeah,
But I
we're
do think
talking
that
about.
like
Sorry?
one of the solutions, right? When it comes to all these platforms, the there's a terms for them. They describe themselves as internet intermediaries.
Mm-hmm.
The terms intermediaries imply that you are merely there as a neutral platforms. You have this space. You allow people to host their own content, exchange of informations, interactions, and so on. So all these platforms, I don't think when they design platforms, they have the intentions. Okay, I'm doing this. I want to write on sexisms against women. I want to go famous because of that. They do have good intentions, and the issue is they take on a neutral stance. But I think when everything is neutral, right, it falls back to the default standards, which is essentially inequality, discriminations. I mean, if you look at what's the standards of parliaments and leaderships right now, right, 90% of them are men. If you look at laws, what's the standard of law? There's no law for sexual harassment. So does it mean that sexual harassment is allowed? So the things with falling onto what is neutral is that it tends to exacerbate what is discrimination. And I think platforms needs to address that from the very beginnings when they start designing the platform. When TikTok was designed, right, it it was designed for contents to go viral. That's why there's all this viral trend that you keep doing. But then what is viral is it's essentially toxic. And we see men performing toxic masculinities, and that thrive because people love that. People love men like bashing another woman for wearing like scanty clothes and things like that. So I think platforms needs to have that awareness. It's also not in their inherent business interest to regulate its content, because why would you want to regulate something that is going viral? So there's a lot of change of business principles, I think. And it's not just for TikTok, but for Facebook, for YouTube, for Twitters, and all the social media platforms. They need to come to awareness of that. Yeah.
Really, I think to actually put all of this awareness into place, I think there needs to be substantial push from other parts of the community, like the government. Like initially, you guys were sharing how certain countries are taking stronger stances for TikTok to localize and contextualize their regulations. We can start with that, to really depend on a corporation to like fully transform its corporate principles while they're making so much money now. I think it's too idealistic lah. Yeah.
Did you guys know TikTok is the most valuable startup because it's worth $75 million?
Time to invest.
They own a lot of apps.
And
Oh, sorry, ByteDance. ByteDance is the most valuable startup.
ByteDance, right? That's the mother company. Yeah. Okay, so with everything that's going on, so in my personal experience, watching these things happen on TikTok was probably when I saw a challenge, like it was a TikTok challenge that went viral, and somehow it became an amplification of child pornography, because it was this 13-year-old girl who was masturbating on video, and then she posted it, or either she asked somebody to post it for her. And when she got caught by her parents, a lot of people were shaming her for it and saying like things like, because there were sensible people, just saying sensible people, who were saying things like, oh my god, like this is horrible, why are you amplifying this post, why would you say it even though you feel bad for her. And there would be comments replying to it and saying things like, no, don't feel bad for her, she wanted it, she was the person who posted it, right? So if this were to happen in Malaysia, right, and what would be the best solution that we can give to our children? Like what is in a way where, how can we tell them, hey, we want you to enjoy your time on the internet, but we also need you to know that this happens and what is the repercussion of it. And I get it, at the end of the day, it's your choice, you can do whatever you want, you can post it again if you want, but I need to understand the dangers of it. Like, how do we do that without making them feel like we're attacking them?
I think
Really? Oh,
that's okay.
sorry.
Sorry.
What's the question for?
Okay, I'll just put this forward. Educating our children about the distinction between what's okay to be done in a public sphere and what is okay to be done in a private sphere. Masturbation, like for instance, if we were to use that as an example, that's literally something that you get to decide to do. Like no one should be bothered by it. But there are certain things in our society, especially being in a really conservative society, there are still a few things that we need to be careful of. And I think we shouldn't be, indoctrinating our children on what's culturally accepted or not, but we bring them through, like, okay, if you want to do this, these are the potential possibilities that's going to happen, and do you want to go through this? If you want to go through this, what's your backup plan? It's when you treat a child like a child is an adult and a child is able to engage in a reasonable and proper conversation, you will be able to educate the child, and that's the first step to getting things done to protect them. So that's
So true. I've never looked at it in that perspective where we talk to children like they're adults, because I feel like,
Yeah.
because when I look at kids, I just think, oh my god, babies, please don't do this, please.
I mean, it's totally normal to see them as cute little cotton balls, but at the same time, they have their minds of their own. They have their desires, they have their goals, even at the age of 4. So we need to acknowledge that as something that's legit rather than something that's fairy tale-ish and stuff like that.
Yeah, and a child that is still discovering their sexuality, like that's a lifelong type of journey, right? To like discover what you like and how you like doing it. But that is also happening at the same time that you're discovering what privacy means. What does it mean to broadcast yourself to so many people? And with the rise of like this informal sort of vlogger influencer culture, that line is kind of blurred now. Like people don't necessarily think so much of like becoming super viral. If anything, that's a form of social capital, and you don't really think too much about the horror stories of how somebody like Rebecca Black, who put out the Friday song, like is pinned as that for the rest of her life, and she couldn't really do much after that, without being brought back to that sort of moment when she was 14 and she put out that video. Like kids don't understand the repercussions of those things, and when they are learning about it as well, they're sort of kind of like learning it in a vacuum and not really understanding where the overlap happens. So that's another like difficult thing that we need to be able to maneuver. But I think a nice positive uplifting, like kind of uplifting development is the way that the kind of woke sides of the internet have developed this norm of, if you see a video of somebody, there are people in the comments being like, wait, how old are they? Before I react to this, how old are they? Which I think is like a good improvement.
Good first step.
Yeah, which others can adapt.
From Fierce Points, what we can get from it is explaining to kids, whether it's your brother, your sister, or your children, but not speaking in a baby voice, obviously, explaining to them where you're not making them feel stupid, and also explaining to them the difference between a public sphere and a private sphere. I think that's a very, very amazing tip and really, really useful for my future unborn children. how about when we talk about online GBV, right? So because with Aisha, what happened to her was so unfortunate, because even though it's nothing, you can report it, you can block it, you can mute the person, but it gets to you, you know, it gets to you when you see these people say things like, ala, you dah lah buruk, like how can you talk about this online, how can you have the confidence to post on TikTok and things like that, right? When this online hate happens to girls and women and LGBT people, what do we do? What should we do as a society and as a community, and also as victims, as well as people who are bystanders?
I think we need to recognize that it's a pattern. A lot of the times when this thing happens to us and it's kind of like a pylon, like, yes, you can report and you can stay off the app for a couple of days, but the fact that you go to your notifications and you see like plus 99 and all of them are saying something very violating towards you, like that sticks with you. And even if you turn off your computer, like it still sticks with you. And all of that stuff that we were talking about as well, about like, oh, sexualization, and then what's public, what's private, that's also happening in a framework in Malaysia where it's like, it doesn't matter what you do in public or private, you should be like a religious, morally pure person. So yeah.
True. Serene, do we still have Bantuan WMMY? Is that
We
still the service?
not really, because we stopped after it was only for that thing.
Okay.
But I think when it comes to online gender-based violence, I think the number one challenge we face is, so it's even getting women to recognize it as a violence. Because when we are doing monitorings, right? We actually have to proactively reach out to these women,
Yes.
to ask them, and sometimes their response would be just like, oh, actually, it's nothing, it's like a small matters, like, you know, the level of normalizations is so worrying. They do not think that they can tell police, because they think it's too remeh, like police wouldn't layan this. They didn't tell their parents because they don't want their parents to be worried. Even if parents are aware of this, parents would think like it's nothing, it's only social media. So the level of trivialization,
Yeah.
like women are having difficulty acknowledging and calling it gender-based violence,
Yeah.
because it happens so often. Like sometimes for them it could be like twice a month kind of thing, like once a week, whenever they spoke about sexual harassment or they post the photos of their face, you know, these comments would come in, and then every now and then like they would have a big blow up. So the level of normalizing, it's something that we need to address. Very much like I see parallel similarity with sexual harassment. You know, like the first step we really have to do is to break the silence. We need women to speak up and to call it at it is gender-based violence. And also maybe to encourage women to actually go and make police report, even though we know that the chance of police actually ignoring your case is high. But we have to start somewhere, when there's enough cases, to sort of send a message to the law enforcers, hey, this is happening, so many women are making reports, you need to do something. So I think breaking the silence is the one major hurdles we need to cross right now.
Would you say that with all the monitoring that Chris has done, do you think it has helped a lot? How do I say this? Becoming familiar with the type of trolls or perpetrators that we've seen online.
Meaning familiar as in
like you know, like there's always a type of perpetrator, right, in the way they talk, and it first starts with the guy with the big following, right? Obviously, always he's always the main perpetrator. But when the follow-up hate that comes is usually from smaller accounts, but the language is so much easier to identify. Do you think that's true? Like, is it easier for if we were to tell our girls, like, you see things like this, report it, or boost it, right, to your friends and family, so if it were to happen to other people or you, it's so much easier to identify?
There's really no pattern to what will get harassed online. Sometimes it's just you. I've seen pictures of women fully clothed, wearing hijabs and all that, and even that gets sexualized. It just take one person to say nasty things. And if that somehow got amplified via Twitter's algorithms, that's where the harassment will start. And sometimes women could, like in some of the interviews, they were perplexed as well. So like, they have no ideas why this tweet, why not the other one. It's almost by chance. But that also points to a lack of access to data.
Yes.
I wish that we can have access to Twitters and we can see how, like we can sort of do a mappings on what happened with these tweets, who is the first one to pick it up, what this person says, who retweets and reshares. And we have to do this manually, like among us. And it's a huge task. Imagine having to go through 1,000 tweets and to map it all. It's not easy. And we don't have sort of clarity as to how Twitters and all the social media's algorithms are actually amplifying the hate. A lot of our current analysis is based on our manual labors.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I just want to add that I never understood the true scale of how wide something can be amplified until I started doing all this monitoring work for Chris. So say, for example, like if I approach the original poster of a viral tweet that has like 3,000 retweets, something 1,000 amount of likes, and then I ask that person to show me like the activity tab where you can see how many eyes that the post has reached. 3,000 retweets will equal about like almost 20,000 engagements, where it's like that's the number of people that have seen the tweet that just didn't retweet or like it, so it's always way more than you think or way more than you have the impression of. So
Okay, so I'm gonna give this 2 minutes for people to ask questions. We already have one. In between all of that, I want to emphasize what Chris Network is. Chris Network, we're for those who don't know, we are an NGO that focuses on the freedom of expression in a gender lens. So it is really important to us that when you as a person is being targeted for being a woman or just basically whatever that you've posted up just does not make sense why you're getting hate for it. And instead of like focusing on the content of on the content that you've posted, they decide to pour hate on you for being you, right? For example, you're a lesbian or you're a woman and or your child, for example, and that for that alone reason you've been targeted. So if this ever happens to you, it would be really great if you were to reach out to us. We have our Instagram, Chris_network, and we will be able to assist you from there, and we will make use of our capacity to help you with your issues. So now we're going to go back to the questions. One of the question that Sapphire Dragon has pointed out is the algorithm then cheating their advertisers? Because it sounds like a forced viralization and so a fake application of how well the platform does in marketing stuff, and so better able to sell themselves to these advertisers. What would you, does anyone want to answer that? Because I don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm not clear on the questions. Algorithms is cheating their advertiser.
Forced viralization. I'm sure there's some degree of forced viralization. When TikTok moved to the US market, they invested $1 billion just to get TikTok in front of people's screens so they know about it.
Mm-hmm.
And even some of the advertising that you see for TikTok, they have some sort of internal point system, and the advertising for it, when I saw it yesterday, was framed like a TikTok challenge. So I didn't even realize it was an ad until the last 2 seconds. Really?
What? What? Never mind. Sorry. Anyways, Jonathan said, he pointed out that I think one of the reasons why women are not reporting to police or any relevant authorities is also that there is no proper law governing victims of sexual harassment. It is so hard to prove. The only law we have is the workplace sexual harassment law and the child protection law. So here, my friends, I would like to tell you the story of how Sexual Harassment Act almost got tabled this parliament time, but it was prevented. So I hope I see, especially the people who are in this, listening to us, I hope you understand what is the repercussion that has been happening online and even in real life, not just like real life, but also online, right? So let's, if you get the chance, talk about the sexual harassment, um, sexual sexual harassment, sexual harassment act bill, sexual harassment bill that needs to be tabled. Talk about it to everyone. Bring up about it. The power of Twitter is so important. Also very, very necessary, to be honest. So it's very important that we make a conversation out of this. And I understand that to a lot of people it feels like you're powerless because it's just you. But sometimes all you have to do is just keep talking, and somebody will follow up to you, and then it will just, it starts to become infectious, like this pandemic, right? Just one by one, like everybody's just start talking about it. So another question that Jonathan has is, how can we move forward from this? So in a perspective of, a child rights activist, my boss, activist, as like, us who women as well, how can we move forward from this?
Okay, I
I
can
think it's
start. I always like to start small. We don't, like I always say, we don't need to be in a legit organization to start talking about all of these important issues. You can just be as a person on your Instagram, just take 2 minutes to talk about an issue that you think is important. If you think, TikTok is really detrimental for our children, like talk to the children in your lives and reason with them why they should be more wary of like TikTok and stuff like that. It doesn't have to be like huge. It can be as simple as, do you know where the personal safety feature is? Like, do you want me to teach you? Those kind of stuff. It really just starts small and it's a domino effect. I mean, like the COVID-19 infection too, betul juga, Nisa, but also like a domino effect where you start with one person and it's infectious. So yeah, start small. Start now.
I think making that personal decision to not be neutral and to actively, like, if you see something, say something, or if you see something, report it. It's like the internet version now. Even that tiny micro decision that you make, I think, has a domino effect as well. Like, who knows, maybe your one report on something that is offensive content or dangerous content can be the one that gets it taken down.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I think it started recognizing that online gender-based violence is a much broader issues of discrimination, gender inequality. So really, the solution starts with us, as in how we carry our life. I think both Gina and Fia has said, right? It starts more by, just how you react to women in your life, how you react when a guy's in like a guy friends in your circles make the sexist jokes. You call that out. It starts with small little things like that. And if you're keen, like Chris is always open to get more volunteers.
We're very nice.
Yeah, we have the best boss. We have another one also, but she refuses to download Zoom. So what does that say? Okay, so with all of that, I just want to say first, if you are beginning to see signs that your friend is a pedophile and low-key sexual predator and think 17-year-old students are kind of hot, oh my god, they're gonna be 18 next year. Don't, like, call them out on it, report to the police, make sure they get hell and back for it, because protect your children first and foremost. To amplify your opinion, amplify kindness before everything else. Kindness has no boundaries, no limits, no sides to it. All right, so there's no political parties to kindness. You just have to be kind, and when you see something detrimental happen, call it out. I know you feel lonely when you do it, and because you feel like nobody understands when you're doing it, and you feel like even with all the support that's coming up to say, yeah, we think you're right and stuff like that, but I need you to know that it's important to know that you're by the right side. You're doing the right thing. Next, also, if you have anything to talk about, if you have any experiences that you need to be, you need attention towards, just tell us, DM us on Chris_network. And also, if you would like to know more about the sexual grooming of children and how we can prevent it, Monsters Among Us is a very, very beautiful organization that focuses on all of this, and they have also definitely helped a lot of children understand the perspective of it, and why is it illegal and why is it not okay, and why is it a 19-year-old man asking a 12-year-old girl for her number is so wrong. With all of that, I hope everyone's striving throughout this MCO, and don't stop amplifying good views, and talk about the Sexual Harassment Act, please. Oh my God, just talk about it, because I'm fed up. We're all fed up, you know? So talk about it online, tweet about it, Instagram it, make infographics on it, talk about the importance of children, talk about the importance of gender equality. And when you see online GBV happen, call out on it, report it, mass report it. So yes, thank you so much for joining all of us.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Fear, for taking the time. A busy woman. Thank you so much, Serene, my boss, for paying my bills, and for letting this happen. And thank you so much, Gina, for joining us as well, and also being
Thank you
like,
for having me and bumping me up to panelist.
yeah, for bumping her up to panelist, because she is the next best thing. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining and taking the time today. I hope everyone has a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.